Hello everybody and welcome to another Houdini tutorial. My name is Kate and I am here today to show you how to build a few things from one of my favorite shows, Stargate Atlantis. As I explained maybe in a different tutorial, depending on which one you clicked on first, I'm a huge Stargate fan. As in recording this video, I am wearing a Stargate jacket that I bought off Etsy, so thank you to whoever made it. I love it to death. So today we're going to build one of my other favorite things, the Wraith, a Wraith corridor from Stargate. I've been obsessed with the organic structures on the Wraith ships for a while, so I thought it'd be kind of cool to kind of replicate them in Houdini. So this is kind of more of a modeling tutorial than anything else. A really organically kind of creepy one at best. I wouldn't say I'm the greatest modeler in the world, so take that with a grain of salt. I just wanted to recreate something that I like. So, let's get started. Let's start with our lights and our cameras. So we have one camera in the scene and there's just a pan through the hallways. I wanted to light this with the best possible kind of reference that I had. So hold up while I bring up some reference. Okay, so as you can see here, it's very organic. You can kind of see, these are screen grabs from the show. You can kind of see some vein patterns. You've got some fleshy kind of structures and some also bones, I guess, in the walls. So based on the lore of the show, you can kind of see it's kind of dismal dark lighting with some bokehs. You can kind of also see there's some blue-orange lighting ahead as well. So fun facts about the show before we kind of get into some other stuff. Based on the lore of the show, the whole ship is an organic material grown from a human being. So the reason it's so fleshy looking is because it's literally built out of flesh. That these aliens have then taken these mechanical parts and shoved into a ship. And that's kind of what they were hinting at during the show. I don't know how many people are with me on that, but that's what's happened. So you can tell it's very flesh-like, it's very organic. We won't really be doing these pillar things, but we'll be doing the walls as well. You can even add some smoke simulation there. Anyway, let's get started. I got off topic. So we're going to start with the distant light. This color is blue. You can see it here. We've transformed it, translated it this far. I haven't really done anything else. So that's pretty much it. Environment lights. I downloaded one from HDR Haven because I wanted a really, really dark kind of look to it. I've changed the light color to a red. Transform, didn't do anything. That's pretty much it. Distant light, again, red. Awesome. This one, I added, you use one of the default textures in Houdini to kind of create a bokeh-like glow on the grounds. So that's what we have here. We have a projection map. I think for this one we didn't, but I'll double check. Yeah, we didn't. So we're good there. Spotlight. These are the settings. And it's colored a nice little orange yellow color. Transformed it. Another spotlight, which is also yellow. And you can see them over here in the scene. So we've got an intensity of 3 and an exposure of 1. The transform is that. And then we have a point light, which is a deep dark blue. So we've got an intensity color of 3. And it's also transformed just a little bit. And we've got a casustics light that's red. And the reason I'm using a casustics light is because this is kind of an indoor area. And you use caustic lights to light indoor scenes. So that's why it's there. So if we jump into our render area, we can kind of see what I'm doing. So don't be afraid if your render takes a while to think and needs to generate its photon map. Casustics lights work with photon maps and they do take a while to calculate, so don't be afraid about that. Alright, so I forgot to turn off a camera setting. Hold up. I was experimenting. That's better. So, as you can see, I've got a dimly dark hallway. And I've got some beautiful kind of bokeh-ish type of things on the ground that kind of replicate what we had from the show a little bit. But you can kind of see the general lighting, that it is dark, it's blue, it's red, it's dingy. That's exactly what we want. So, jumping back, let's build this thing. First, I'm going to turn off all my renders, little nodes. They are a lot, so don't be too afraid about them, but we'll get there. So, for veins, for the vein output, I have this material wax, which I'll jump to and I'll show you the settings. So the wax, we'll click here and we'll go veins. You can see that it is a red color. It's got an IOR of 1.1, roughness is lowered, reflectivity is lowered a lot, transparency is cranked up a bit. It's this nice little yellow color, and subsurface scattering is also enabled with a 4.97, and its color is a red. Pretty good. Didn't do anything over here, so it's kind of good to go. So jumping out, we'll go down here to our bones, as we talked about. I'm using a matte skin shader, so if we jump over here, we'll rename this bones. And I've colored them a little bit differently. So you can see that the amount per subsurface scattering on the diffuse I've lowered. I've also lowered the weight of the medium layer. And the primary reflection and secondary reflections are also edited as well. And that's pretty much it. So jumping down to the skin itself, I've added a principal shader, so jumping there. So clicking on there, we have a base color of this beautiful red-brown color. IOR 1.123, roughness lowered, reflectivity lowered, transparency heightened. So we want this really kind of transparency, fleshy look, so we can see everything underneath it. And if we jump to our reference, we can see that it's here, and you can kind of see some things that are underneath, and that's what I wanted. So we have this, and skimming through, that's what we got. Jumping back, we have a ground plane, and it's sharing the same shader as our veins, so we're good to go there. Our pillars are sharing the same shader as our bones, which are great. And then I did something a little bit sneaky, where I wanted, and you'll see it here, some wall intersections. So the growths coming out of the ground have these kind of meshy blobs that are holding them there. So if we go here and we jump up to our principal shader here, this is a wall intersection. So like taking a look at it, we've got a orangey color to it. IOR is raised, roughness lowered, reflectivity lowered, transparency upped, dispersion also upped as well, and the subsurface color is a orangey red. So jumping down here, we've got some floor pieces, so they're just like general rocks and stuff all over the place. We'll get into a second of how to model that, but it's sharing the same shader as our waxy veins, which is pretty good. Then we've got these pillars that are kind of organic, and that is sharing the same shader as our skin, which is great. We've got some glowy stuff in the walls. I wasn't able to grab a screen grab of it, but in the show, there's certain moments where the characters look up and there's these almost alien yellowy glows in the ceiling, and that's kind of what I wanted a little bit. So we've got this glowy type of thing happening, and we can go to our glow, and it's pretty much good to go. We've got a glow ramp rate of 9.8.2. Emission is a 0.7. We've got this nice little yellow color. So we'll turn that off. Then, because it is a spaceship, I want everything to reflect off of metal. So I've created a metal exterior to this hallway, so nothing's getting out, and it's using an oxidized steel shader, which we'll jump to in a second. I'm gonna lay out everything so we can find it, and we'll do hallway. So if we jump up here, base color is red, IOR is upped, roughness is upped, metallic is upped as well, reflectivity is lowered, and nothing else is really changed on the shader. So jumping down here, we've got the only electronic type of thing I've added to the scene. So I created some kind of alien blocks, as you will. You don't really see them close up in the render, so hence why they're a little bit weird. But you've got these panels, and they're sharing a platinum shader, which are over here, and I'll call these panels. So we've got base color of this little gray color, metallic's up, reflectivity is up, everything else is pretty normal. And that's pretty much all it is shader wise, so you're kind of good to go. So let's dive into our setup, and I'm warning you before we dive in, this is pretty heavy. So letting this think itself out, we'll jump up to the top. So the entire setup is built around this tube. And I'm going to turn off materials and also lighting so you can see what's going on. So we've got this tube. And this tube is a switch to a polygon. Orientation is on the z-axis. And the height and the radius scale are all changed. So I'll let you take in that information. I wanted a lot of rows and columns because we are sampling this from a lot of other things in the setup. I've clipped it so we only get the ground plane. We get where it should touch the ground anyways. I then transformed it a bit over here, so scaled it up and changed it, added a mountain, and it's going out to our metal. So that's the metal pieces that you saw earlier, and that's how it fit around the entire kind of spaceship. Kind of cool. So we jump over here to our attribute paint. I've painted some values onto here. Do it however you see fit. I just did some random values on my little corridor and just painted where I wanted branches to grow and scatter points from. So I've scattered some points down here, and you can see it placed all the points on the white areas, so you can see it there. Pretty cool. And then I added a point jitter. So I point jittered them all out of place. If we look down here, they should all be scattered around our tube. I've added connect adjacent pieces so we can see how they're connecting to the points, and I've changed this to adjacent points. Then smooth these so we can see some kind of natural forms start to show. Fuse them, so if there's any spare points that are overlapping, we can get rid of them. I've added an add, and what this add is doing is just removing any unconnected points. So if you look in this area over here, by jumping up here, you can see some spare points, and this add is just removing them, so it's removing any unused points. Then added another smooth. As you can see, there's a little bit of change. Resampled it. Fused it. Again. And then added a wires vein out. So we got a basic setup of our little hallway. Now if we jump downwards and we go over here, I'm object merging this down here because it was simpler than just connecting everything and having a whole mess. So this object merge is just grabbing this and all up here. I've then colored everything black, converted it, and added a wire. The reason I colored it black is that if you're working in a light environment like this, it's easier to see everything connected than just be looking blindly for you know, white things on dark backgrounds. For me, my eyes prefer looking at something black than white. So anyway, we've got a wire, so this is making it all into polygons. And then I added a VBD from polygons. So this will take a while. And there we go, we have our polygons, which are great. So you can see that the voxel size is turned down a lot to retain that detail. And it's on surface. So jumping down here, we've got reshape the SDF, so it's eroding them just a little bit. I'm then converting them to polygons. So we kind of get this meshy, organic but also sharp looking structure. And then I've smoothed everything out. So we kind of have that eroded, poppy looking mesh. Then file cache this all out. So add your file cache so you're not having to wait for this to load. Unwrapped it and then put in out. So this out veins, color red because it is referenced in other things. So over here, if you want to take a look at everything, it should fit in with the whole setup kind of like this, which looks really poppy and weird, but I did this over here so I could see what the heck was going on with the bones and the fleshy parts and all that stuff. So jumping back up to the surface, this attribute paint is being sent over here to the scatter. So once again, we are scattering points across our surface, and we're adding another point jitter, which is great. Then I deleted some points, not all of them, in a range. So delete SOP with entity is points. Add another connect adjacent pieces. So we've got some really cool looking building blocks over here. And then scattered some more points across this connect adjacent pieces. Connected the points. So we've got these kind of globular mess. Smooth them, fuse them, and now we've got some wires for our skin. So you can see that this is being referenced over here, and we'll get to that in a second. So jumping back to our connected adjacent pieces over here, we've added a smooth, so you can see some bigger pieces. Fuse them. Removed any points that we don't need. So if we jump up here, there are points. And this fuse has removed them, which is great. And then we've got some wires for the bones. And we've added a polywire. Now you may be going, this polywire is very jagged. Why aren't you doing anything about it? Well, you'll see so in a sec. It's not really necessary. So we've got a smooth, and this is smoothing out our jagged areas. And already you can see a nice little bone structure starting to develop through our little web. So I've added a normal and a VBD from polygons because VBDs are our best friends. So voxel size is 0.04. We've got a VBD segment connectivity down so I can see which areas are attached to each other. And you can see the different pieces they are segmented into. And I just do that for visualization purposes. In this case, I didn't really need to remove everything. I've then dilated my SDF and converted it to polygons. So we have this smoothed out kind of bone-like structure. If you prefer the one we had with a polywire and just a smooth, go ahead, use that. 100%, it's all up to you. So go back down here. We'll go through our camera just so you can see where the bones are. Deleted any attributes I don't need, so the name and the color. Subdivided these to make them a little bit smoother. And added a point VOP so I can get some of that jagged little density. So this point VOP is very useful when we use it throughout the setup. We've got a frequency of 333, amplitude and roughness are all adjusted. And diving inside, we've got just an anti-alias noise plugged into the position with all its attributes promoted to the top. If you ever want to promote an attribute, just hold middle mouse hold the little circle and click Promote Parameter. That will get onto the surface of your node. Fit, right here. Displacement amount is right here, so once again that's also plugged into the position, and this is plugged into the amount and geometry output. And you'll make little bumps across your figure like that, and it's pretty great. I've then unwrapped everything so it has some UVs when we lay textures down, and then I've file cached everything. Awesome. So now I've got some out bones, and I've called that version 2. I think it was because I had a different thing in the scene at the time, so we'll just call that out bones for now. We'll turn that black. So jumping over here, we have our little wires that we created for the skin. Then added a ripple and a measure over here. And you'd be wondering what am I doing, right? Well, this is just in case you want your hallway to slightly move. In the case that you don't, just remove these 3 nodes and just put down this one. So if we look at this and we skim through our timeline, you can watch our skins kind of start to move a little bit, which is kind of cool. In the show, the Wraith ship does move and the hallways do change and walls melt. It's kind of cool, so I thought that just add that into there. I've got a pointy form and all of those are plugged in like that. And then I've added a VBD from particles. So this is sampling everything. So you can see the voxel size is 0.02, point radius scale, minimum voxels and radius, and is on surface. I've then dilated these just a little bit, reshaped them, so eroded them again, smoothed them, and converted them to polygons. So we have some kind of meshy bubbles going on. And this is going out to our second skin, which you can reference if you like. So skimming down, I'm just going to remove a node that I don't need. Then added another VBD from polygons, so it's sampling everything this time. Checking out the nodes, the voxel size. Reshaping them a lot, so they're really large. Reshaping them again, so you've got this huge kind of dome-like thing happening. So it's eroding everything. And converting it to polygons. So now we actually have a skin that goes over everything. And if you skim through the timeline, it should move. Yeah! So I then subdivided this to make it less wonky around the edges. Unwrapped it with a UV. File cached it and placed it on the surface. So it's now going out. And every node that I'm color coding black is a node that's going out to the surface. Or being referenced by something else. So in this case, I forget, we'll double check later if this is being referenced on the surface. But either way, it's plugged into this and we kind of need it. So jumping over here. So you can see that I merged 2 things together, which was our bones and our veins going through the spaceship. We've got bones and these. So that's kind of cool. I like that structure already, but it's missing something. So what can we do? You're going to notice already that I have a merge node down here. And the final product is this. So from this bone and vein-like structure, I was able to generate some pillars and our rocks and our ground plane and stuff. It's pretty cool to work with. We'll get there in a second. So jumping over here to our merge, we'll start with the first one, which is intersection analysis. So what the intersection analysis tool is doing is taking the intersection between 2 objects and generating a set of points, which you can see on the ground here. So what I have over here is a grid, and over here I have my wall. So for this grid, I just created it and stretched it along the surface of my little hallway, and then I edited it. So I took the edges over here and pulled them, selected all the edges, and just rescaled them down so they'd match the exit point of the hallway. and then I blasted away any areas of the ground that I didn't need. So anything outside the hallway bounds. Then I added a null so I could reference it later on, and then we have our intersection analysis tool. We'll let it think itself out, and then I added a point jitter. Point jitter, if you can't tell, is one of my favorite tools in Houdini. You can get away with so much stuff with it. I've then added connect adjacent pieces, and then smooth these out. So you can see them creating clumps on our floor. I've then added a wire, and this might take a while depending on what type of computer you have. So you can see it's wired all these points together. And then I've added a VBD from polygons, because I'm insane. So for our polygons, we've got a voxel size of 0.03. You can see them all along here. Reshape them just a little bit. Smooth them out so you can see it now smooth. Converted them back to polygons. And added another point VOP. So what this point VOP is just a copy and paste of the one we talked about previously. So I'll dive inside. It's got its settings adjusted just a little bit. So on the top, the promoted ones anyways. Diving inside, it's exactly the same. And then I just added a file cache and cached it out. And we'll color this. So going over here, we're going to go back to our floor. Because we do want our floor in our setup, we're going to go to add a mountain to it. So we've got some variation on the floor, subdivided just a little bit, cache it out, and now we've got a floor. Now jumping over here, you're going to notice a couple things that are kind of weird. I've taken the floor and I've also taken our bone structure as shown above to generate the pillars and also the ground pieces we see on the floor as well. So I've scattered some points across these. You can see them. And then I've added connect adjacent pieces. So you can see the whole hallway has now become these wired little points. And I've smoothed them out. Then I added a wire. And a VBD from polygons. And we'll let that think. There you go. So the voxel size is 0.03. Added a reshape to it. VBD smooth, which is creating those clumps that you see. Converted them back to polygons, so if we turn off our points, we can now see this stretched across the spaceship. Point VOP, exactly the same as this one. Didn't even have to edit it. Then, cached it out. And then we have our floor pieces. So jumping over here, I've again scattered more points that you can see here. Added a start group, so you can see some selected, and you can select them randomly across. Just make sure you have, just select them where you want. I just chose some random points in my hallway and put them into a start group. And you can select new points by clicking the arrow and hitting the floor thing like that, and just pressing enter. I then added a group by range, so it's taking the base group from start and then ranging a filter through 1 to 5 from points from that group, and then deleted all the points that are not in group 1. So we've got them in the scene. Then added a connect adjacent pieces, resampled those lines, smoothed those lines, and added a point VOP. So what this point VOP is, it's exactly the same as the one we copy and pasted from the other ones, and just adjusted the roughness just a little bit. Then added a wire so you can get it growing up from the grounds, and another VBD. So the voxel size is 0.03. VBD reshape SDF is dilating them just a little bit, smoothing them out, converting them to polygons, added a point VOP, and then added another file cache, and now we have our pillars, which is pretty simple. So altogether, these should look like that. Pretty simple. Now down here, I wanted to create some skin for the pillars and whatever hectic mess that we've created. So I've added another scatter onto my pillars that you can see here. I've pretty much done the same thing over and over again. So we've got a blast, so we're blasting the points from this pillar over here, and then doing the reverse blast over here, so only grabbing the pillar in the back. I've added connect adjacent pieces, and then another connect adjacent pieces over here. VBD from particles, and another VBD from particles. So this is just copy paste really. Smooth those VBDs, and then smooth those VBDs. Reshape the SCF for this one. This one over here didn't need it too much. Then converted this to polygons, and converted this to polygons. Then I merged them and added a point VOP. And once again, this point VOP is exactly the same. You can do it with or without. I kind of like it with because I really like stone effects. And I kind of get this kind of Dr. Seuss vibe from it. So I like it. It's really up to you. And these are the pillar covers to go over the pillar. So these are the skin of the pillar itself. So jumping over here, we're getting to the last bit of the setup, which is the skin itself that goes across the entire spaceship. So I've merged in the veins, the bones, and the pillars. And you can see them over here. So we've got the bones, the pillars, and the veins. So merging them all together, we get some kind of a weird concoction already. We've got an attribute noise scattered across them, so you can see some, it's mostly black, but you have these really tiny green and yellow areas as long as with red. So attribute noise has kind of changed since Houdini 18. I'm not sure if I love or hate side effects for this, but we'll find out in the future. But I've changed the noise value, so the amplitude is a little bit different. If you change it, it will change. And basically what this section of the setup is doing is creating those little glowy areas in the ceiling that I wanted. So they don't have to be huge, or the color area that you generate these points from doesn't have to be huge. And that's pretty much what I've done. I've added another scatter node, so it's only scattering on those areas. Another point jitter, just jittering them just slightly. Attribute randomize, so we can adjust the P scale of these particles. So we've got a min and max value set there, and I'm deleting any other attributes that I don't need. And then we've got these lights, and we'll just make sure those are going out. So the last part of our setup are those panels. And I can tell to you right now, this is just an extra thing if you want to do. It's not a big thing if you want a completely organic structure. Everything is just done for you. These are just to create some kind of abstract panels in the scene. So I started with a grid. And I have a grid on an XY plane. A YZ plane, sorry. Mapped the rows and columns and turned it into a polygon. Poly extruded it from the back and outputted the back. Scattered it. So we've got a total of 345 points. Added an attribute randomize, which is a P scale, and then copied some points down here with some bricks onto it. So we've got some kind of rotated bricks, if you will. The box over here, from scale, polygon, 0.1. Connect adjacent pieces is generated from the scatter up here. So I've turned this to adjacent points. We've got a wire that's connecting them all. And then I merged these two together. So we've got some kind of abstract build going. Converted these to polygons. And then merged this with our block. So already you can tell we've got a pretty good kind of circuit board effect going. Then converted these to polygons. these polygons to VBDs, so they all merge together and we can have kind of a smoothness connection to them. So the voxel size is very heavy, it's 0.008, so be careful. Converted these back to polygons, and you've got these all meshed together in almost a sci-fi kind of look. We've got a panel. I've then transformed this down so it's just a little bit smaller, so it's 0.05. And then I've copied this to points. And the points that I'm grabbing from are from our skin that we set up earlier. I should probably add a time shift because I just realized our skin is moving and that's going to cause issues. So I'm going to add a time shift on a random frame. It doesn't matter which frame. And scattered some points onto it so you can see them. It's not a lot of points, it's like 12, but you get the general idea. Point jittered them just a little bit. Blasted away some points that I didn't need, so I wanted the panels to appear closer to the camera. So I just isolated the points that were closest to the camera, but you can add them wherever you like in the scene. And then blasted a little bit more. Then I copied these panels to points, and this will take a while, so don't click anything. And now you have them about the scene. Then I cached them all out, and now we have our out panels. Then I'm going to color this black, and we'll jump to our surface. So our render veins are grabbing from our veins. Our bones, grabbing from the bones. And our skin, grabbing from our skin. So I'll just show you exactly what they're all grabbing from so you can kind of get the general path. So we got our pillars, our wall intersection, 4 pieces, pillar covers, glowy dots scattered about there, render metal, and rendering the panels, which is probably going to be the longest part of your process because they're scattered so randomly across the scene. They're also used for reflection as well, so with your lights, instead of having everything translucent, there's also a lot of reflections going on, which is the secondary reason why they're there. And that's pretty much it. And that's kind of how you can build the organic structures in a Wraith ship. And I hope that was enjoyable for you. I enjoyed building it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!